There are Canadian companies very interested in investing in China, and there's an opportunity for investments from China into Canada. What we've always said is we need to make sure that that happens well and right and in a way that defends Canadian interests. And it is certainly my reflection that a good trade deal that sets out clear parameters and structures around that relationship, sets clear rules and expectations that can be followed, would be a good thing for Canada.
The prospects of a free trade deal with the world's second largest economy are muddier today. China is not happy about Ottawa blocking a takeover of Aecon. Shareholders in the construction and engineering giant aren't happy either. The announcement came just after the Toronto Stock Exchange closed for the day. When trading resumed this morning, Aecon stock fell to the lowest level since August. That's when the company essentially put itself up for sale. A Chinese state-owned company bid $1.5 billion for the Toronto-based company. Ottawa announced a full national security review of the deal. Aecon has a long history of participation in large Canadian projects such as the CN Tower, Vancouver SkyTrain, the St. Lawrence Seaway, and the Halifax Shipyard. That may have been a factor in the federal government's decision to block this deal. Economic Development Minister Navdeep Bains was pressed for answers, but as you're about to hear, he didn't provide much clarity. All right, we don't have that audio, but he didn't provide very much clarity around the decision here. Aecon CEO John Beck keeps his job. He was on this show earlier this month. Here's what he had to say then about the merits of a deal.
Allows us to be stronger financially. It helps us to bulk up, to be able to compete with the very large international companies that are now present in our marketplace in Canada today. For us to grow and continue to employ more Canadians, to build infrastructure competitively for the benefit of taxpayers across the country, we need to bulk up.
This isn't the first blocked Chinese takeover, but Ottawa has shown a willingness to greenlight others in the past. Last June, China's Hytera Communications got approval to buy Norsat. The Vancouver-based company developed a satellite system for the Canadian Coast Guard. There was a preliminary screening, but no further review. The U.S. Department of Defense and Boeing were among its clients. That didn't sit well with the Pentagon. In 2013, China National Offshore Oil got approval to buy Nexen. CNOOC made a series of promises around job creation, head office location, and corporate governance. The deal for the oil and gas company was worth more than $15 billion. Now, to discuss this latest rejection, what it means for Canada's approach to foreign investment, let's bring in Dany Assaf. He's a partner at the law firm Torys and an expert in areas of competition law and foreign investment law. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure, Peter.
Did you expect this? Should we all have maybe expected this?
You know, it's unexpected, but not surprising, if I can kind of use that phrase, because we've all been like the frog in the soup as this national security review world has evolved over the last decade in Canada. And this is really part of a global trend of you're seeing increased scrutiny in the US, for example, and in the UK. Everybody wants to take a look at deals for national security concerns.
Because the idea of what used to constitute a national security, what that bar was, I think used to be fairly clear. It has muddied itself somewhat. Is there a positive part to that development, or do we need to make sure that we're all talking about the right thing and that we're clarifying what it is and where that bar now sits?
There is no doubt. There is more uncertainty today, and it's caused by a couple of different factors. One of the factors is you do have this shift of economic power from west to east, and you're bringing in new players who we traditionally haven't dealt with. You're also dealing with technology in the digital age where security concerns are more sophisticated, they're more subtle, they're more nuanced, whether it's on the surveillance side or whether it's on the technology side itself. So you're seeing everybody trying to feel their way through this new world, and then it's all against this bigger backstop of protectionism. And that's where the larger question looms, again, in Canada and globally, is this balance between the public interest and concerns about protectionism. And then when you're thinking about investment in the future, you want to get that balance right so you don't chill the wrong kinds of investment while trying to ensure national security is protected.
Do you think the public interest was served by this decision?
Well, this world is very opaque. I've been involved in these transactions. I've been involved in one that was rejected, as a matter of fact. And being a primary party to this day, we really don't know why. They will not tell you, because it is the world of surveillance. It's the world of security. They don't really tell you. So in this particular case, we only know what's on the public record, is that Aecon, as you suggested, has been involved in very critical infrastructure projects, and there must have been some questions around that that ultimately were not resolved or could not have been mitigated, which is another way we try to find our way through these types of investments.
When John Beck was on the show, I asked him specifically about the Gordie Howe Bridge, the one between Canada and the U.S. in Windsor and Detroit, and if Aecon was suddenly owned by a Chinese company that's essentially controlled by the government, would Aecon still be in the running to have an infrastructure project like that? He didn't have a particularly good answer, because I think that's a really, that would be a hard one for, I think, even the general populace that doesn't follow this stuff very closely to get their heads around, well, how do you manage that?
Well, I'll add another layer of complexity to this. Is today you have global alliances of security. We are involved in a great alliance called the Five Eyes, which is Canada, the UK, US, Australia, and New Zealand. And there is greater coordination amongst these parties to make sure that security is only as strong as its weakest link. And you have actually developments in the US. Among other things, they want to scrutinize Chinese takeovers and investments more, as we have seen publicly and now in terms of their future reform. And then in addition, they've even called upon greater cooperation amongst allies in national security reviews. So now the unknown factor is whether or not, in the context of a Canadian deal, you have one of our major allies saying, we have a very sharp concern, and we want you to act upon it. So you could have a situation, conceivably, where it's again, some ally making some very important submissions saying, we want you to help us maintain our global security.
And just quickly before you go, does this do bad things to the relationship between Canada and China, or?
I hope not. I think this government has shown that it wants to be open for investment from China, and it has approved some deals that even have been controversial from the U.S. point of view. But this particular one, they said no, and I hope that it is on the facts. We don't know, but it's on the facts, very particular to this case, and that they will understand that they will get a merit-based review. Canada's open for business. We're seeing, again, as I said, economic power moving from west to east. It's in our interest to make sure that we're connected to these markets, but we need to also make sure we have the right balance and take a look at things on the merits one by one and communicate clearly and effectively to people to know that we're not just doing these things out of a protectionist bias.
And that's just it. And on that, I really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for coming in. Dany Assaf is a partner at the law firm Torys.